It was an absolutely phenomenal test match. It's one that will not be forgotten soon by any of the 52,000 fans who made the trip to Loftus Versfeld to witness it. It was heartbreak ultimately for the Springboks, and it was the All Blacks that emerged victorious. And how ironic that 2 points in this result, which is the same points margin that we saw in Wellington, both of those matches going to the way of the visitors. But gentlemen, your impressions after that? Yes, we wear our heart on our sleeves sometimes. We wanted the Springboks to win, particularly given the turnout today. It would have been wonderful. But what a match, and well done the All Blacks.
Well, it's absolutely heartbreaking because the Boks led until the final try, the whole game. You know, it was a draw at half-time, but we were always ahead. We got into a 30 points to 13 lead with about 15 minutes to go. We had an opportunity to score, and I think Ardie Savea turned the ball over on their line. Yeah. Then a little bit of ill discipline crept into our game. We had a couple of turnovers at the breakdown. They had a few phenomenal kicks for the corner, some driving lineouts, and I just wanted to say we've got to compliment this team, this All Black team. It's heartbreaking for the Springboks who played so wonderfully well, but let's give credit to the All Blacks, because when they decided to hold on to the ball amongst their forwards, and that close quarter driving play that they have, every single player had a support player on his shoulder. They drove, even if they made half a meter or a meter, and they scored 2 tries from it. We had similar situations, and we had a couple of turnovers in the same situation. So close quarter possession of the ball won them the game, and a little bit of a lack of discipline in the final 10 minutes, I think, cost us dearly today.
You have to commend them for the way in which they fought back from that deficit. But you've also likewise got to, I'd like to hear from you what it takes to close down a game. Because that is a skill. As we take a look at some of the tries and the highlights, closing down a game is as much a skill as scoring tries and creating the positive play.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think the Boks will definitely be gutted from this loss. You know, they actually played out the plan to the T. You know, in the first half, you know, they put the All Blacks under pressure. They kept pinning them back, and it was a close first half. And then the second half, the guys came out fighting. You know, we scored amazing tries from Jesse, and Sia put away Damien Delenda. And I think at a certain point, we got a bit anxious. You know, and I think that also comes down with a bit of experience. You know,
quite right.
They will definitely learn from this. As much as it will hurt, you know, they'll definitely learn from this. That, you know, if you are leading, you gotta just stay calm. There are a few things that we did where we just kicked the ball away without having the right chasers in place. And at times there where we kept that ball too tight, where we got the turnover. So those are the small things that make a big difference, you know. So definitely they'll be hurting from this, but they'll take some lessons out of it.
You know, the one thing I can't figure out after watching this match, Nas, is how Steve Hansen will feel. Will he feel that they pulled victory from the jaws of defeat and well done to his team and great character, or will he feel the Springboks are catching up to us and are proving to be a real threat, especially given that the World Cup is not that far away?
Well, I believe for 78 minutes we actually controlled the game. We lost it in the last, 50 seconds. Yes, they did score 2 tries in the last, 5-6 minutes. But still, you know, what really stood out for me in the last number of minutes is when we were going forward, we went 1 and 1 and 1. So we isolated ourselves, firstly, and secondly, the support was never there. And that's what Nick's talking about. In the tight phases, where the ball was close combat, we sort of tend to go a little bit on a one-on-one drive instead of making sure we're protecting the ball. We had, 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go, we gave away a penalty. We never covered the touchline because that ball, we spoke about, that ball could have bounced anywhere. That ball could have bounced anywhere, okay? But it bounced out. But I mean, you know, on a penalty like that, you've got to cover the touchline. Now, that's what we can call a little bit of inexperience by Damien. Maybe Willie would have covered it, whatever. Or next time you make an effort to get back and to make sure that there's no lucky bounce. But at the end, it was 1 bounce. But I still believe for 79 minutes, we really played well. It's a hard one. It's really hard, tough.
How does Hansen feel, Nick? Does he worry a bit
I think they do understand that South Africa's on the up and up. Yep. We've had quite a few years of disillusionment, the South African supporters, and us in SuperSport, we get ourselves up for a game. We say, okay, maybe it's this time. Heineke Meyer only managed to win 1, I think, out of 9 against the All Blacks, and Alistair could see 0, and we took a couple of 50-pointers, which demoralizes the support. And so we've got a bit of trepidation before we say, listen, I think the All Black, the Boks can win. But they really, after these 2 showings, scoring 36 points away and 30 points here at home, we've definitely back. Just a technical point on those 2 tries they scored. There is a lot to do with experience, because what they do, their forwards, is they drive past the ball. So the player goes to ground and the cleaner goes well past the ball. The next guy who picks him goes into that hole. Now they do it so closely packed together that it's hard to call obstruction, but it's almost like an obstruction. Whereas perhaps we stick too closely to the laws and we sort of wait until the guy goes to ground and then just clean over the ball. They clean past the ball, and that opens up the opportunity to score.
And they also exit beyond the point of contact. They always make sure they exit on the side of the opponent.
Well, there was one at the end of the game. It was only to Papier, who was actually a little scrum off, but he was the first defender. And Barrett went over to clean, and his hand comes out. He just grabs Papier and walks away with him. That just takes the defender out, and there's an opportunity. Hard to see, but that's the sort of experience that we'll learn in a year under Rassie.
But Nick, the most important thing is they stay on their feet. So that's very difficult to call. If you dive over or you fall over, then it's easy to call that. But if you stay on your feet, it really looks like you stay very close to the ball. And that's why, but at the end, if you take the last one, we lost that ball because it was a one player going alone instead of wait for your team. 3 minutes to go. Turnover, and then they scored from that.
Plus what Odd was said about positivity. That's
definitely. And I think as much as the All Blacks came back and won the game, there's massive improvements from the South African team. I think if you go back from last week, we spoke about their kicking game, which today was amazing. Appiah was chasing down those kicks, and Chesley chasing down those kicks. So definitely there's massive improvements. And if you go back to when the championship started and when they lost in Argentina and when the Springboks went to New Zealand, we didn't know what team would pitch up, and they played well. They beat the All Blacks there, and then they came back at home, So there's definitely massive improvements.
Well, there are a couple of visiting New Zealand youngsters here. We assume it's a rugby team, and they are giving these guys a little bit of a haka. And right behind me, the All Blacks are standing, receiving them in the greatest show of respect, which is absolutely wonderful, not just for the players, the All Blacks themselves, but for the youngsters as well, who have come out, obviously, all the way from the land of the long white cloud.
But at least we had them quiet for 78 minutes. It's only in the last 1 minute they actually secured the win. But,
we didn't even know they were here.
Fantastic win for New Zealand, but I think a tough day for South Africa because they really played well.
Certainly was, but there were highlights, and let's not lose the fact that the Springboks really were doing incredibly well for the bulk of this game, and there were, as I mentioned, a couple of nice tries and highlights, and the Land Rover driven beyond moment was that wonderful try that was scored by Damien Dallender in the second half. Well, it really was a phenomenal moment, one of the highlights of this match. And again, we started today building up to the match by talking about the fact that the Springboks are creating chances. The tries they scored, I thought, were very well created. They're doing it regularly, more and more regularly, and that's wonderful to see. And it's something that they've obviously built on. Nick spoke about the face that Sways to Brain has had a large part to play, but it seems now to be seeping into the DNA of this team.
Absolutely. It's good tries they score in the first place. Secondly, they're creating a lot more. We spoke about it at halftime, 1 or 2 opportunities where we felt that the play was on, where we decided to rather kick the ball downfield. But at the end, we start scoring tries against New Zealand. They've got a fantastic defense. We also got to compliment their defense today. They really kept us out. As Nick mentioned, the turnover by Savea on their goal line and little things like that. But I'm telling you, the most important thing for me is the way we play. Let's be honest now. For the last 3 years, this is by far the best we've played. I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about the last number of internationals. We really play rugby that the spectators would like to see. And yes, a little bit of this, a little bit, one bounce, this way, that way. Could have been a different story. But I still compliment New Zealand for actually getting this one out of the fire.
Ardie, let's look ahead. End of year tour is not too far away. Between now and, of course, the World Cup, we are still going to face some really tough opponents in the autumn internationals, including England, who still will be smarting from that 3-test loss. Here, they'll have a point to prove. They've taken John Mitchell from this very field, and I suppose Eddie Jones will want revenge. He'll want to win at Twickenham. He'll want to lay a marker down and prove a point.
Definitely, and I think the biggest thing is the Boks have gone on those end of the year tours, and we haven't done well in the past couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years. And I mentioned earlier is that the good thing about this team is improving, and I'm sure Rassie will be very devastated with this loss, but I don't think he will change much of the personnel that's there with a few guys like Dwayne Vermeulen coming back, so it will definitely be massive, but guys will just have to go there and make sure that they put up a big performance.
There's not too much time between then and now, and an opportunity for 1 or 2 players to finish strongly, Nick, in the Currie Cup. Put their hands up, because I would think that Rassie has got 80% of his World Cup squad in his mind already.
Very much so. And I also think we really need to compliment South Africa on their performance today. It's really hard to swallow this because we had this game in the bag, in a sense. And I suppose New Zealand must have felt the same when they lost to us away from home. So, but 2 great games of rugby between 2 top teams. So, in the past, we were getting knocked into 7th place in the world. Now we went up to 5th. And we were sort of getting right out of the picture of being a team that can beat the All Blacks. Now it looks very much as though we could challenge them again in a World Cup game. And also, it means that we are going to be more of a threat to England when we play away, perhaps to Ireland. We're playing France. I think we're playing Scotland, or not Ireland, but Wales. I think, and France and Scotland. So we can look forward to that with a lot more confidence. Just some youngsters who came through, if you don't mind me saying. Jonesy, we didn't know about him last year. I mean, absolutely sensational. Great fish, 6 tries or 7 tries already, I think, in his Test career. Just puts his body on the line, so competitive. We've got Am, who's come through and he's played some excellent, he played a brilliant game down in Wellington. We've got Damien Willems, who had an opportunity. We saw the step he made there and the offload to Mostert. If we'd had a supporter with Mostert, there was another try. We have, there's Papier who's come through, which is fantastic to see that he gets an opportunity. But 2 opportunities we missed, guys. The pass straight into touch from Faf when he had Kitshoff. Kitshoff thought the winger was there, and the turnover under the poles. On such small things are big Test matches lost.
Well, it certainly was heartbreaking for South African fans, for us as well. But we are heartened, not just by the rugby we've seen on the field this year by the Springboks, but the turnout in Port Elizabeth, the turnout at Loftus Versfeld. It's something that we've been bemoaning, we've been worried about, concerned. But 52,000 people out this weekend. Last week, more than 40,000 people out. It certainly bodes well for the future of South African rugby. It also bodes well for the future of the supporters of Springbok rugby. So thank you very much, gentlemen. It really was a wonderful rugby championship. And we certainly wish the Boks well on the end of year tour. All eyes, of course, will be on them as they continue to build up to next year's Rugby World Cup. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Pretoria. We salute you for coming out.